Okay, we are live, and today we are going to talk about the cost of making your website ADA compliant. There are actually a fairly good amount of websites that will tell you that will give you a good idea of what you can expect to pay. But before we get into that, and what part of this stream today is going to be, it's going to be me going through these different pages and just discussing the prices as I find them, as if I was someone that was looking for website accessibility and ADA website compliance services, etc. So I will be talking about different prices we come across, but before that, it's important to know that when you're price conscious, and almost everyone is, including large companies, um, it's not really about so much what you're paying for the services. It's making sure that you don't spend money on things that don't advance you, things that don't help you reach your objective. Because many people they are looking at the price, but I wouldn't necessarily pay so close attention to the price as I would pay attention to making sure whatever I get is actually going to help me make my website ADA compliant, WCAG 2.1, AA conformant, so on. So that's what I would pay attention to. It wouldn't be so much the price, it's more, am I getting what I need to get? Because there's so much money wasted on on quote unquote solutions that don't advance you to your objective. And this is an industry where the sellers are extremely deceptive. And it's not one aspect of the website accessibility and ADA website compliance industry is that it's a very unique business model. It's actually a very difficult business model to work through, and this is why sometimes you see sellers they're struggling to figure out how exactly they want to position this, because many sellers are trying to sell things that don't really advance the client's interests. So what ends up happening is they have to have it's like a clunky, awkward business model where it ends up becoming really difficult to sell. And if you think of that and have that in mind when you're going through these different digital accessibility companies and their offerings, you'll start to notice that this is somewhat of a difficult sell, especially when you're trying to sell something that really isn't aligned to what the consumer needs. And so that's something that many of these companies, the solution companies, struggle with. They struggle with positioning this. And the only reason they get away with it, and they're getting away with it less and less, but the only reason they get away with it is because the consumer doesn't know any better. And the consumer is looking to these digital accessibility companies that are positioning themselves as experts. They're looking to them for guidance, and what ends up happening is they end up being sold on something that they don't need and that doesn't advance them, but they don't know any better. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and let's start looking through some search results and just see what we come across as we are looking for the prices here. So an AI overview has ADA compliance services can cost between $1,500 and $5,000 to make your website ADA compliant. However, the actual cost can vary. Yes, so between $1,500 and $5,000, that's really a range for an audit. So an audit's just going to find the issues, and some some consumers are unaware of this to an extent. I don't think they have it clearly in their mind what their end objective is, and because of that, they end up getting an audit, but then thinking that's going to take them to the end of this project, and it's not. It's really just the first half. It's essential if you are trying to be WCAG 2.1 AA conformant. You have to have the audit to find all of the issues. but that's not going to end up making your website WCAG conformant. You have to have the remediation. The other half would be the remediation side of this. So you have to have that. So it's not $1,500 to $5,000 is not going to. You're not going to end up with an audit and remediation. That would just be for the audit. So I'm going to click on more, and this is again, this is a Google generated result here. And then we have another, according to Atlas, an ADA website compliance audit can start at $1,500, but the actual work to make the site range can range from $3,000 to $5,000 on up. I know it's going to cost that much, and you might think, well, if I look and I find somebody, I can end up paying that. That usually, when you look to try to pay as the least amount possible, you usually end up costing yourself, right? So it's that needle in a haystack. Some people think that's out there. They're going to get this audit and remediation done, and everything's going to cost under $5,000, and that's just that's more imaginary than anything else. Ongoing auditing and maintenance can cost anywhere from $500 to $1,000 per month. Okay, so this gets into an interesting topic: is the ongoing audits and maintenance. Well, first of all, you wouldn't want an audit every month. It wouldn't even make sense even if you could afford it. Because what are you going to do? Continually just audit your website, and the audit's not even going to sometimes the audit might not even practically finish by the time the month is up. So at most a quarterly audit. I think even if you are on an accelerated timeline, a biannual audit would be a good interval. But otherwise, a nice standard timeline is once a month if you want an ongoing audit. Yes, it is a best practice, but depending on how many changes are made to your website and how well your team picks up accessibility, if you have training for the digital team, an audit every year might not be necessary. So it might be every 2 years. So you definitely don't have to have an audit at any set interval unless you really want to, which I'm not opposed to, like a quarterly audit or a biannual audit, but it's also at the same time, it's absolutely not necessary. Again, it depends on your team's, how fast your team develops expertise, and then also how many changes you're making to the website. Now, then they say maintenance. Well, okay, so then what does maintenance mean? Because then we have this audit. You have one thing with accessibility is if you play the scenarios out, just how they would unfold in real life, some of this stuff doesn't make any sense. Like, so an audit and maintenance, okay, well, how exactly is the maintenance going to come about? Am I going to have this service provider that's going to have access to my website, and they are going to remediate my website as they are auditing it? That's not going to happen. And it's definitely not going to happen once a month. So that's something that would need to be worked out. And if that was the case, it would probably cost you more than $1,000 per month. So I think what is happening here is this is from the standpoint of a scan, and that's even misleading because that's not an audit. So a scan would not be this. You probably wouldn't want to pay for a scan. You could, and you could flag issues through automation and look through those and possibly make changes. But again, are you going to make those changes? Is someone actually going through this audit report and then making changes? And then also, are you aware that you have a false sense of accessibility awareness because an audit is only flagging certain accessibility issues? So when you practically work through some of the solutions, it just doesn't make any sense. So that's why I talked about making sure you buy what makes sense practically and not buying just something because it's offered. And so you can save a lot of money just by extracting and taking out some of these expenses that don't even make sense. So then we have, according to Skynet Technologies, the cost of updating a website to meet WCAG and ADA standards can range from 6,000 to 20,000 or more. That makes sense. And again, it does depend on the website, so you're not going to see like a set price for every last thing, because it just depends. You know, some clients are going to have more dynamic websites. They're going to have worse accessibility, and so just more work is involved. And then, I made it into the Google snippet. I didn't even know this. According to adabook.medium.com, the more information-based your site is, the less expensive your web compliance costs will be. Well, I know I never wrote web compliance, but yes, you know, if you have a simple blog or an information site, that is one way to reduce your costs. You know, and if, like, let's just say I was a consultant and I just did accounting consulting, I would just have a fairly simple site, and it doesn't mean that it has to be the appearance is the design is not a nice design, but if you just have an information based site, there's not a lot that can create accessibility issues, right? You'd have less success criteria that apply to your site, so it would be easier to take care of accessibility. So keep in mind, the less dynamic elements involved, the easier it is to make your website accessible. So yes, the cost will go down. And then it says, for example, a blog is more information based, so the cost will be lower. In contrast, sites that are more media rich, audio, video, and images will be more expensive. Well, yeah, that can be the case. It just depends on, for example, if you have audio, then you're going to have a transcript. If you have video, closed captions. Depending on the video, you might have to have audio descriptions. And if that's the case, that will get more expensive. It will be more time consuming. Images, not as much unless you have complex images, but AI has really made that a lot easier. So AI really did reduce the cost when it comes to not only alt text, but closed captions. And then in this last sentence generated by the AI, we have, according to Accessibility.com, the ADA compliance program at Accessible.org is $4,999 for most sites and includes a WCAG 2.1 AA audit and code remediation. Well, I don't think Accessibility was writing about the ADA compliance program at Accessible.org, but it is true, there's that ADA compliance program present, but AI has put together a lot here, and I don't think Accessibility was writing about the ADA compliance program, but this is an AI generated summary, so that's one thing we have to go on. And then we have, then we get into this monthly plans for $49 a month, and this is going to be for an accessibility widget, which we've talked about. An accessibility widget does not advance you. It doesn't make your website accessible or ADA compliant. It's just there. There may be some nominal benefit, but this is one of the things that is sold, and it's been sold for a long time under this pretense that it's going to make your website ADA compliant, but that's not the case. And in fact, we know that some widgets have been targeted by plaintiffs' lawyers. So it really, you have to, again, goes back to what I was saying earlier. Ask yourself, what does this actually do? Like, what am I actually getting out of this? Like, beyond just the marketing and the salesmanship that's being presented to me, like, what is it that you are actually tangibly getting in return for your $49 a month? Are you just spending $600 a year for no reason? Or is there actually there's some benefit, whether it's a reduced legal risk, whether it's where you're making your website, you're improving the accessibility of your website. It's maybe not fully WCAG conformant, but conformant for more success criteria. What is actually being advanced? And then so let's go ahead and click on WFX for ADA compliance pricing here. And we have a website, and note that WebFX actually is a marketing company, and we have SEO and lead generation, revenue marketing, and CRO, UX and interactive, these are all navigation elements that I'm reading off the top of their website, and then so we have a page that is dedicated to the price of ADA compliance, the cost of accessible web design. So I'm already there's already apprehension in the fact that we have a marketing company that is offering accessibility services. Now it's not like they can't offer good accessibility services, but based on my experience, most marketing companies are not they're not thorough enough. They're not paying enough attention to detail. In fact, many marketing companies, they're just looking for a way to capitalize on the interest in ADA compliance. So that is why I am skeptical of marketing companies, because they're not in this space. They have more lassoed ADA compliance and web accessibility because they know it's a way to generate clients, possibly lead clients into other services. So that's why I have skepticism here. And then I'm going to click on a view our ADA compliance services link, and it says automated ADA and section 508 compliance service. Okay, so we already have a problem here. Automated services. Again, this gets back into, and here we have in the US alone, people live with a disability that limits their access to certain tools, platforms, media. For that reason, the Americans with Disabilities Act was created. ADA compliance services for WebFX use advanced AI technology to provide equal access to online content. Okay, so here another AI. We already have AI. That's another catch keyword that's thrown in, and it's there to make it sound like this is more advanced. In fact, they use the word advanced, but as I've said, technology is a red flag. Whenever we have technology, we know that we likely don't want to choose this option, because we cannot automate accessibility. This is something where I've said you want to seek out good old-fashioned manual services. That is what you're after, because otherwise you get diverted into this AI technology talk. And notice how we don't have specifics. Okay, AI technology, how? What exactly are you doing? Don't give me the buzzword. Don't give me the marketing aspect of this. I want to know tangibly, what am I getting from you? And so let's go down this page and let's see what we are getting. Okay, another flag, up to 1,000 website URLs. Okay, what does that mean though? If I have 1,000 URLs, first of all, we don't even know what's happening with these URLs. These are the ADA compliance service plans. Okay, service plan, great. 1,000 website URLs. First of all, what does that mean? But then second of all, what am I going to do if I have 1,000 website URLs of, let's say, scan results? What am I actually going to do with that? I don't know. Like I mean, what action could you take? And then we have thrown out WCAG 2.1 AA section 508 ADA EN 301 549 compliance. Okay, that's a broad sweeping statement that you didn't provide any specificity to. Accessibility statement and certification of performance. Oh, well, performance. Well, again, what does that mean? Daily automated compliance monitoring scans. Another example of what does this actually mean in real life? Like if I was to have a daily automated scan, it wouldn't be for compliance, but a daily automated scan. Am I taking these scan results and immediately, we're immediately going to the computer and we're starting to remediate? That's not going to be the case. Automatic 96% plus success rate AI powered remediation. Okay, huge red flag here. How? Tell me how. I want to know how. Show me how you're going to make my website 96% WCAG conformant. I would love to know. Okay, and then here we have platform installation and configuration. I don't even know what that means. What exactly does that mean? So we continue down. Then we have does your website need to be ADA compliant? So they start talking about that. We have expert insights from WebFX. The goal of website accessibility is to make online spaces inclusive and accessible. And then it just continues on. For example, if you visit a public building, you would expect that reasonable accommodations would be in place to allow equal access to visitors, such as elevators or wheelchair ramps within the online space. We should also prioritize access for users. What insight is that? There's like no, that's no insight. Um, I, again, back to your offering, what are the specifics behind your offering? So we get into tax credit, and then how many people are supposed to, or the surveys say that have certain disabilities. What disabilities? We're talking all about the different disabilities, but I need to know what your services actually offer. AI powered ADA compliance. They say they understand the standards. We aim to make your website accessible. Our AI powered compliance services include everything I talked about previously. And then your search for ADA, they're really pushing the automated side of this. Your search for automated ADA and 508 compliance services is here. Let's see, here we have some specifics, some light specifics. Our AI scans your website structure and creates layers of useful info for each quote unquote block of your site. Our AI analyzes each website block to discover what happens when clicked or hovered over. Our system saves data and deploys our unique interface, allowing disabled users to adjust your site based on the AI's findings. Okay, that's not specific enough. I still don't know what I'm getting. Um, let's see. So why partner with WebFX for ADA and 508 compliance services? To ensure your web's okay. More general information. We will evaluate your site page by page, ensuring any and all accessibility requirements are fulfilled. Make sure any visitor who visits your website has the necessary experience. WebFX will evaluate the following and implement recommendations based on 508 compliance requirements. Page by page analysis, web browser testing, copywriting services. Why is copywriting in here? Screen reader testing, accessibility audit, web form audit, media files transcription. Okay, so media files transcription audit. So I'm already concerned here because we just have a bunch of things thrown together and it's not really cohesive. And this sounds like we have an audit, but if we have an audit on this bottom part of the page, then what was all the automated stuff for at the beginning of the page? So that's what's going through my mind is like, okay, if you're telling me now that we need an audit, then what is the AI for? What about the automated part? That sounds like a widget. I don't see a widget on this WebFX page, which by the way, I will link to in the description. But now I want to know what's happening here. And I will bet money, the copywriting services already, like, what does copywriting have to do with accessibility? It could have something to do with it, but that's not what I'm reading in copywriting services, especially from a marketing agency. And when I say that, by the way, I'm thinking of making sure when I think of copywriting for accessibility, I'm thinking of if someone were to make the wording and the language in plain language and easy to understand, then I could somewhat see this. But copywriting makes me think something else. So again, I'm still not sure, and we're over halfway through the page, and then we have a frequently asked question section. And by the way, we've only gone through one page. I'm actually curious at this point what they're offering, so that's why I'm continuing to go down. But we'll go to a few more pages by the time the stream is up. It says, what are ADA compliant services? And then it doesn't. Then they just try to define what ADA compliant services would mean, but they don't talk about them in the context of what they're offering. How does Marketing Cloud FX AI work? So it says their tech can be installed in just 2 weeks on any website. That doesn't. But again, what does that mean in the context of accessibility? Is 100% ADA compliance guaranteed? While we can't guarantee 100% compliance with accessibility guidelines, notice that transition there. First of all, it's not compliance, it's conformance. And no, they can't guarantee ADA compliance. Nobody can, because for ADA Title III. What does ADA compliance even mean? But anyways, our technology aims to maintain your site's accessibility even as you make updates. So how do you do that? But how specifics? How much do services cost? Then we have this. We get back to the 1,500 to 5,000, which is significantly less than the price of ADA fines. Just and then we have section 508. So we have these frequently asked questions. Are these really the frequently asked questions that people want to know when they visit the pages? Make your site accessible today, and then we get to a table where we have these different offerings. I wouldn't call them services, but it's really repeating what we've already read. And then we have ADA and 508 compliance audit services. So then we have a column that's do it yourself, and then we have a column that's implemented. And it's somewhat confusing because the table is not intuitive, and so with the do-it-yourself option, there's an executive final report, there's detailed final report, project report reporting, initial 25 pages, investment $5,000, each additional block of 10 pages, $350, add-on WCAG 2.0. So we're adding on WCAG 2.0 level AA standards, 30% price increase. If your website is not responsive, 25. I don't even know what's going on here. This is so unclear. And the problem is that if you were to come across this, you would assume that WebFX knows what they're doing. I can't tell exactly what they're doing, even from their own sales page. So one of these offerings under the ADA and 508 compliance audit services is do it yourself, and then there's implemented. So reported and implemented. So then it says page-by-page analysis, web browser testing, copywriting for images. Okay, so it's not, calling it copywriting is inaccurate. It's just like, it's off. So you're writing alt text descriptions, copywriting for meta tags. Title tags could be in that. Pages tested with screen reader. So I don't know what is do-it-yourself and what is implemented, but I think the point here is this entire page lacks clarity. It's hard to extract actual meaning from this page. And again, WebFX isn't even a digital accessibility company. They're a general marketing company, which gets back to what I was saying earlier. I'm always skeptical when I see marketing companies selling accessibility services, because it usually means that they've jumped into this as an add-on to revenue, as a way to convert people into other services, but they don't actually know what they're doing in terms of accessibility. So let's go to Accessibility.works. This is actually Accessibility.works is dedicated to accessibility from my outside view looking in, but what is notable is they are apparently owned by Propeller MediaWorks. So it says visit Propeller MediaWorks for accessible web design and remediation. And so if we go to Propeller, this is custom website designers and digital marketing. So we have another digital marketing company, but Propeller, one thing they did that was smarter was they had an entire website dedicated to accessibility, and so that is Accessibility.works. But that comes from Propeller MediaWorks. So I'm on Propeller now. This is a web design and marketing company, and I think they're fairly well known, if I'm not mistaken. At least I think they were at one time. But then Accessibility.works is their website specifically for accessibility services. So here we are on a page, budgeting for web accessibility, and I will link to this below as well. And so I'm just scrolling down the page. Web accessibility also boosts your SEO. Simple changes like adding alt text to images and clear headers, its headings, can make your website content more understandable for search engines and users. This is crucial for increasing your website's visibility. Well, I've made a video on SEO and accessibility, and the key to understanding this SEO business case for accessibility is that if you have not worked on your SEO whatsoever, yes, you would likely benefit from having a structured heading hierarchy um, with the subheadings properly nested, and then alt text does is add additional keywords to your page. So if you wanted the keywords on your page, you could just add them to your page. But if you want to rank images, then alt text will help you rank images. But again, for accessibility, we're not trying to rank our images. We're trying to describe them accurately and concisely. So you wouldn't want to use alternative text values for SEO purposes. And it's very, these are very basic SEO considerations. If you don't already have them in place, then you likely don't care about SEO. So we just get a long wind up on just talking about here's artificial intelligence optimization, legal standards, the baby boomer, SEO boost, enhanced user experience. And then so AI and automated software testing is very limited. So this looks interesting. What's important to be clear is that AI is not effective yet. Those touting AI tend to be public companies that are not yet using generative AI and are only interested in scale for which human testing does not work. So in today's world, even the best automated testing can only detect roughly 30% of WCAG issues, and that's not enough. Well, not exactly, but close enough. I like their messaging. 25%. It's in scan. It's not testing, but this is actually one of the more accurate portrayals that I have come across. Then it has redesign versus remediation, picking your path. First things first, how old is your website? If it's been around more than 4 years, it's probably time for a refresh. And I think there's some truth to that. If your website is really old, it's probably using older technology. So there might be something to just starting over and redesigning it to be accessible from start to finish. And so they say this is the perfect opportunity to overhaul the site for ADA compliance, SEO optimization, and to leverage new techniques for mobile responsiveness. And then so I think this is leading into their other services where, again, we go back to Propeller MediaWorks. What do they offer? They offer web design services. Remediation, our process for achieving ADA website compliance. Every team will have their own process. At Accessibility.works, we leverage the experience of a team of accessibility consultants made up of only senior members, no interns, no juniors, no outsourcing abroad. That sounds good. Everyone is credentialed with over 19 years in accessibility. That sounds really good. Our team lead is even on the WCAG 2.2 and 3.0 teams developing the next sets of standards. So that's in reference to the W3C. That's good to know, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. But that's, I don't mind them throwing that in. So we follow best practices that recognize the limitations of automated WCAG testing tools and augment those gaps with qualified human testing. So you're not, again, you don't combine a scan with a manual audit. A manual audit stands alone. A manual audit will, during the course of a manual audit, the auditor will use a scan, but the auditor should not be relying on those scan results. So it's not like a 1 + 1 = completed audit. It's more of a 1 might use a scan and then it equals a completed audit. So then they talk about the phase 1. It says this human-centric approach is paramount because automated tools can only identify 30% of potential accessibility issues. Again, we're not relying upon a scan, so that's something where I definitely wouldn't write this the same way, but this is actually one of the better descriptions of service offerings that I've seen, and in terms of they're approaching this from the right mindset. Although again, you don't combine a scan with a manual evaluation. So we can offer a VPAT. Okay, so it looks like they're offering VPAT services for websites. So VPATs are not designed for websites. The second Second letter in the acronym is product, voluntary product accessibility template. Websites are typically not a product. Um, I don't. There's not like a specific reason why you couldn't create an ACR for a website, but it's really not for that purpose. And when we look at Section 508, 508 encompasses electronic content, electronic information, so that can consist of websites. But think of when you create an ACR for web pages or website, it would be more like the pages that are integral to using a product such as software. So the hefty price of ignoring accessibility, we haven't got to the prices yet. Remediation costs, no, nothing. Okay, so here we get into the prices. Small WordPress marketing or info site, $8,000 to $15,000. Standard Shopify e-commerce website, $18,000 to $30,000. Complex or custom e-commerce website, $35,000 plus. Enterprise e-commerce, $100,000. They talk about be selective about which pages to audit. And by the way, was that just for an audit? Those prices I think are just for an audit. For a larger organization, the path would be a full comprehensive audit. This would include automated testing of the entire site plus manual. A scan is not really a selling point. You can go scan your website right now for free. The free scans aren't different from the paid scans. Like not materially. Like there's not like a huge difference. Like if I was to go from an axe scan to a scan that's behind a paywall, what's actually the difference? There's not like these paid scans they're not flagging that many more accessibility issues than other scans, if at all. And it does vary by scan. Some scans have less rule sets than others, but it's not like there's this tremendous gulf between scans. So just think, basically scans are the same whether it's paid or it's free. So just know that, and yes, some scans do scan less issues, but we can just use an axe scan that's by DQ, and that's going to scan as many rule sets as can be effectively scanned as any paid scan or any premium scan. So this is for an audit price, and these prices they're up there. This is on the higher side. So small WordPress marketing or info site, $8,000 to $15,000. Remember how I talked about information websites are easier? Remember Google's AI pulled that from one of my write-ups? Well, this is saying $8,000 to $15,000. That would be on the high side. Standard Shopify e-commerce website, $18,000 to $30,000. I thought this was for an audit and remediation, and I still thought these prices were a little bit high. So I'll link to this page in case I'm wrong. You can read through this and see if this is indeed actually for an audit. But that's what I'm on a stream, so I'm not going to read every last word here. But that's what I'm getting at. See, it says by a qualified human auditor, the cost is largely based on the number and complexity of unique pages on the site. So I agree that does factor into the cost, but they are at an ultra premium here. So I'm going to back out of this. Oh wait, it had a section on cost of remediation. I just want to look at that real fast. The cost cannot be known until the audit is conducted. That said, it will be important to line up significant team resources to engage in this project as soon as the audit is complete. True, you do not want to let the report collect dust, because the longer it takes, the more the website will change. Very true. Beware of snake oil AI overlay widgets. That's, yeah. I mean, it's nice that I like that they included this. These providers will claim to make your website 100% ADA compliant overnight using their favorite buzzword, artificial intelligence. See, again, I like, their general messaging is on point. Now, obviously, there are some parts in here that I disagree with, but their general messaging, they're getting right. Like, they're basically taking the right approach. And while I'm here, I want to just look at their services overview. So they offer remediation, consulting. Okay, so we're not seeing any prices here, but they do offer services. So we've looked at 2 pages. Let's keep going. Let's see what else we can find. I've already talked about Atlas. That was in the AI write-up. Let's look at this result, which is ddiy.co. How much does it cost to make a website ADA compliant? We have here, so making a website ADA compliant costs between $3,000 and upwards of $50,000 depending on a few factors. Well, that's completely unhelpful. And then using a widget like UserWay can automatically get your website ADA compliant for a fraction of cost of doing it yourself. Oh, and then we have a promo code here. Okay, so how is it that UserWay has figured out something that no one else has? So then we get into how much does this cost? Audits for initial audits start around $500 for a smaller website and can be as much as $10,000 for particularly large domains. That's large domains. I think they mean like more like enterprise website is what I think they're getting at, but they said that in a really strange way. For actual upgrades, smaller websites requiring relatively simple, non-invasive changes can cost as low as $3,000 to make compliant. These are lower prices, but they're not, the lack of specificity, that's something I've gone over repeatedly on this channel. Attention to detail is everything. And when the service provider is not detailed in their description of services, that usually means they're not going to be detailed in their actual execution of the services. However, many sites require more comprehensive alterations, which can run the bill up as much as $50,000. I don't have a problem with a quote of $50,000 if that's what's involved. Some websites are just really involved, but this lack of detail here. It doesn't give the reader a good feel for how much it will cost for them. So then we just have like generic information on the web content accessibility guidelines. I think there was something about lawsuits in there. Is this an ongoing process? Okay, I haven't read this section yet, but I will bet that they say it is. As long as you continue to add content to your website and as long as the Americans with Disabilities Act continues to be updated to account for previously unconsidered accessibility requirements, you will need to continuously reevaluate your site for compliance. Luckily, ongoing maintenance and upkeep are easier and more affordable than a total accessibility makeover, but it is still a factor that needs to be accounted for. Many companies hire an auditor or consultant who can monitor their web pages and offer guidance and tech solutions to make sure their site is always compliant with the requirements. I actually don't really have a problem with what they stated there. If you're changing your website, then you need to make sure that your changes are accessible. As far as the ADA updates, if there's an update, when there's an update to Title III regulation, then you'll need to be aware of that. But we already know, WCAG 2.1 AA conformance is a best practice. I said that for years, and then it ended up we saw it in the new web rule for Title II, and that's very likely going to carry over. Of course, there will be some nuance. There'll probably be a few changes to the Title III update, but you'll need to be aware of those. But just make your website WCAG 2.1 AA conformant now, and you'll be right there. And then, I'm surprised at their description there. Then we get into, if you prefer to tackle this job on your own without hiring a developer, there are some very useful tools that can help you with the process. Several different ADA compliance plugins have been developed that can work for various website models and automatically fix some of your issues. They cannot automatically fix issues. For instance, if you are building a WordPress site, the WP Accessibility plugin is a good tool for you to use. Of course, this will be a slower process than using a developer, and it isn't fully equipped to deal with all of your accessibility needs. So if he's talking about the Joe Dolson plugin, I do like that plugin, but that's not. I don't know if if there's a toolbar involved anymore. I don't think there is, but. Yeah, there are some plugins that can help you with specific accessibility things in WordPress, but this is not the widgets that I'm referring to. Then we have here, finally, a widget like UserWay is a perfect quick solution for fixing accessibility issues with your site without completely altering the code or structure. No, and again, we have the word solution. Whenever you come across solution, you know you have found a non-solution. Its limitations are similar to those associated with plugins, but it is still a very useful tool to rely on when handling the web development process on your own. How? How is it a useful tool? For most websites, these solutions will cost about $49 a month and typically take 10 to 15 minutes to set up. What did I talked about earlier? These are the things that cost you money. People buy them. They don't do anything for them, and then they end up having to start all over, now in the deficit of, in this case, $600 a year. There was that write-up was obviously largely promotional of UserWay. There was some fair information in there, but that's one of those things when you're reading these different articles, you really have to know what you're reading and be able to understand it and be able to understand what they're getting at. You can see how many times the information, the very relevant information and the details are just glossed over. But if you're just learning about accessibility and compliance, you won't even know what they're glossing over. So we have another result here, and it's ADAcompliancefirm.com. So let's look at their pricing. Let's see. So we can get a quote. This is actually, we'll continue on. I'll pick up on that in a second. Pricing that suits your business need. ADA website widget. All right, so we already know things have gone awry because they're starting us out with a widget. Anybody that's recommending a widget has already chosen the wrong path. So I'm going to eliminate anybody that is selling a widget. I automatically won't even look at your website to even consider anything you're offering, because I already know that you are offering something that's fundamentally flawed. So if that's the case, then that's like everything else. Like I can't take you seriously after that. And then we have, so by the way, on the ADA compliance widget, complete ADA compliance report for your website, ADA compliant software installed on your website. What does that mean? What does that do for me? What is that? And that's, by the way, that's $100 setup. What's the total cost? Then we have ADA website compliant. Complete report, ADA compliant software, 1 page of errors fixed by our team of experts, installed compliance policy. What? That's really bad. So 1 page of errors fixed by our team of experts. So okay, so if we're fixing 1 page of errors, which by the way, like, why would it only be 1 page? And this is for $2,000 setup. So what does the widget do if your team is fixing errors? That's another question, right? When you come across these solutions and the services, and then you see the solutions paired with the services, then you go back and you say, well, if you're offering me an audit and you're telling me it does, it's for all these things and it's so expensive, then what am I paying for this widget for? And then we have an all-in-one compliance option. So we have to request a quote for this. We have the report, we have the ADA compliant software, we have GDPR compliant, we have data so we're getting beyond accessibility here. That is also a red flag. It doesn't mean that someone can't offer additional offerings besides accessibility, but now we're into data privacy. So how much attention are you paying to accessibility? Then we have installed compliance policy, monthly compliance updates. What does that mean? What does that mean? And then we have comparing pricing plans. It doesn't tell you have to sign up, which is basically what was covered earlier. What services does ADA compliance offer to the disability community? Well, how about website owners that are trying to make their websites accessible? ADA Compliance Firm offers a range of services to empower individuals with disabilities, including accessibility resources, community programs, legal support, education, and advocacy. Do you really? I would love to know what that looks like. We offer expert accessibility audits, adaptive technologies, and modifications to enhance daily living environments. Well, you've said a lot and said nothing at all at the same time. I would love to see this demonstrated. How can I join the ADA compliance firm community? You, without the Y, can join our thriving community and stay informed about our initiatives. Thriving community. By signing up for our newsletter, by subscribing, you'll receive updates on our latest resources, education, and opportunities involved. What impact has ADA compliance firm had on the disability community? Members of our community have shared their transformative experiences. That just reads like there's a Facebook post, highlighting the support, friendships, and inclusivity they found through ADA compliance firm. I would like them to be able to screenshot what they have done so far. Our resources and inclusive communication practices have made a significant difference in their lives. I've never come across. I've seen ADAcompliancefirm.com in search results. I've never looked at their website before. So this is actually a fairly simple site, but now you have an idea of what they're offering. So let's go back to the search results. Let's continue on. Let's see. I'm looking, by the way, for organic results. So let's look at Nielsen Marketing Service, ADA. ADA website compliance, software pricing. We're back to software. What does the software do? And they're even charging a one-time setup fee of $150 that includes the following ADA compliant features. So for $492 a year, which sounds very similar to $500 a year, it's right around that $50 a month mark. By the way, they have a widget installed. I'm clicking on the widget to see what comes up. And here we have, this looks like a white label widget. So it says powered by Nielsen Marketing Services. I don't, so the thing is, I don't know my widgets well enough to where I can distinguish between all of them. I think this is an equal web, but I don't know that for certain. But it looks like a white label, but maybe it's their own, right? So for small, $492 a year. Auto remediation, you can't automatically remediate anything. For small websites up to 100 pages or 10,000 monthly visits. And then we have here WCAG 2.1 AA, ADA, Section 508, etc., all jammed into this really just cluttered section on WCAG standards and then different laws. And then add a URL to your page count and get a package option. And medium is just more of the same, $612 a year, large. So this is a widget, right? Benefits of our software. Oh, here we have that 96% number again. Our ADA software is 96% compliant to meet WCAG A and AA. You didn't even put the version in there. What does that actually mean? So that this is something like if I'm a consumer, you have to ask yourself, what does this actually mean in real life? Our ADA software through AI helps cut through the web expense. Even their writing here, it's like, what does this mean? Who wrote this? Our ADA software helps protect against complaints and fines. Persons with disabilities are able to use a trusted website. Okay, so yeah, I'm shaking my head at this one. I don't know exactly. It's hard to extract meaning from that. But here, I've talked about marketing agencies. What do marketing agencies do? They are looking to take advantage of this because they understand that there is increasing demand, mostly from lawsuits. Let's look at Skynet Technologies. I see their name come up sometimes. So how much does ADA WCAG website accessibility compliance? They didn't even try to make the keywords flow. They just threw them all in there. How much does ADA WCAG website accessibility compliance manual audit cost, and what factors impact the cost? So they have cost in there twice. Let's see. Process of manual accessibility audit with an exclamation point. Comprehensive audit. An audit is performed by expert auditors to review each page of the website. They test every element. The experts also check assistive technologies, compatibility with the website. So that actually The messaging there sounds fairly good. Factors affecting the cost. So we have here manual accessibility audit includes several. Who wrote this? It's not even when you're reading it. And by the way, if you read some of my articles, I'll mess up sometimes too. But like when I read something and it's like they're missing, it doesn't look like this was written by someone in who is fluent in English, which by the way could be corrected if they just ran this through ChatGPT. But manual accessibility audit includes several factors that impact its cost. The cost generally ranges from $2,500 to $25,000 and beyond. That's a really expensive audit. It's comprehensive, size of the website, continuing on down, importance. So they're emphasizing manual audit, which is good. That's always good. So, here we're looking at it from what I've read, browsing through, $2,500 to $25,000. Okay, so let's continue down. Accessible.works made it, although I searched for ADA website compliance price and my lawsuit settlement amounts post came up. Then we have pixelplex.io. We have Digital Alley, and this is from Rakava. Rakava actually offers real accessibility services. We have a 2020 post from UsableNet. So this is from their calculator. So how to calculate the cost to make your website ADA compliant, 9 steps. All right, and so one note here is this is from 2020, so I'm not going to hold anything completely against them. This is a while ago. Complexity of your site, identify the types of content your site has, determine the okay, so then we have a link to the accessibility calculator. If once you have an audit with comprehensive list of issues you need to fix, you can create a roadmap, a remediation roadmap, estimate internal resource accessibility and costs, and get an estimate from your agency, or evaluate a dynamic remediation solution such as UsableNet Assistive. All right, so I've talked about whenever we see that word solution in there, we know that we have not found a solution. The best accessibility testing software, such as AQA, will perform automated testing, it's a scan, and flag, I like that they said flag issues that need to be manually reviewed. Okay, that's good. They said the scan needs to be manually reviewed, which it does. So that's actually good. But again, I talked about scans before. The scans aren't that, there are no scans that are just changing the game here. If there is, it will be all over the place. So if there is a scan where it's just like this has changed the game, we'll know about it. But I haven't come across any scan that has been markedly different from anything that's available for free. And then they have their so they have a 5-star plan to maintain accessibility. So that's 5-star plan. Don't wait until your website is perfect. Automate testing whenever possible. Okay, so the push towards automation. Perform screen reader verification on every release. Train your team on accessibility. Conduct annual audits and user testing. Don't forget about third-party integrations. Don't forget about purchase the right tools and services. I've talked about that. You have to purchase the right services. Stay away from tools. You don't need tools. You need services. Tools, if they are helpful tools are what the accessibility expert would use during an audit. It's not, the tools really aren't for the end user, because then you're trying to make sense of the tool, and you also will need services anyway because you don't understand enough, you don't have the infrastructure to make your website or whatever else accessible. So you don't need any tools, you need services. So we don't have any specific prices here, but there is some good messaging, and then there is also going back to it. What did we have here? So they talk about types of content. Where was it? Solution, dynamic remediation solution. Again, what did I tell you at the very beginning of this stream? We want a good old good old fashioned manual services. We're not looking for anything high tech. We're not looking for any dynamic remediation. We're not looking for a solution. We are looking for services that we know are going to find the issues and then fix the issues. That's what we need. We don't need any software. We didn't come across any prices on this page, by the way. And so, yeah, and then so we've come across, I've gone through the first two pages of Google for what did I search for? ADA website compliance price. So we've come across, we've gone through a handful of results, and these results, part of the difficulty in being a consumer here is there's so much bad information, and if you aren't aware of what you are trying to buy and you're being educated as you are reading about all of these quote unquote solutions, it becomes really difficult to know what you need and to choose the right thing. So going back to the very beginning of the stream, remember I talked about knowing what you need, and not it just by the mere fact that you stay away from the solutions, then you're going to get a win. Like even if you pay a premium, right? Even if it's like, let's say it's 25% above what you might have paid if you had searched, if you went through a few more pages of Google, that's still okay. As long as you're not wasting money or signing up for some subscription that you don't need, then you're going to be okay. Now, when it comes to digital accessibility companies that don't list out their prices, which is this is not to say that's not a bad sales and marketing technique, because what they want to do is they want you to be on a call. They want their salespeople to pitch you and show you all of what they're offering, etc. But with accessibility, you don't want to be educated by the seller. I recognize the irony in the fact that I am a seller, but generally you don't want to be educated by the seller. I am only selling things that actually advance you towards accessibility. But when you go onto these sales calls, a lot of times they're not selling you things that actually advance you. They're selling you solutions. Again, that's the word here. When we talk about accessibility, look out for the word solution. Anytime you see the word solution, anytime you see automated technology, software, then we start going down the wrong path. We want services. We want excellent, high quality services. So that's what we're after. And even if you pay a premium on these services, you're still doing much, much better than other people, because they end up, especially some of the larger organizations with the larger budgets, they connect a higher price with getting more, and they're actually getting less. They've been sold things that are going to lead them astray. But going back to one of the points I was just making, is when you come across digital accessibility companies that won't give you an idea of their price, that means you're probably in for at least $10,000, more like $20,000, but at least, because I'm generalizing here, at least $10,000. But when they don't tell you the price, it's $20,000, and then even at $20,000, you're getting the bottom of the barrel. And so you really don't want to be at the bottom of the barrel for any of these large digital accessibility companies, because what they're going to do, they're going to package up the solutions, they're going to package up the platforms, all of the software, access to a scan, and they're just going to throw that at you. They'll say they'll give you live support, and then you might get a service in there somewhere. The quality of the service, who knows what quality it is? It doesn't matter if you're paying $30,000 a year. The quality of the service might be horrible, right? Because they're outsourcing this, right? So this is you have to keep that in mind, and you also have to keep in mind when they're spending more on marketing, that means the customers are inevitably paying for that marketing too. So we've talked a lot about pricing and costs. But this is how I've gone over several results from the first 2 pages of Google, and that's not to say that that's necessarily captures the entire industry, but this does capture what what consumers are coming across when they are looking for ADA website compliance services and products. Here, in this case, I talked about this industry is somewhat unique. You don't want a product, but many companies want to sell you the product because that is where they make the money. So what you want to do is you want just the services. You want to isolate the services. You want to extract them out from any solutions, any technologies, any products. That's not to say that there can't be a good product, but usually it's not. And if it is a good product, then a lot of times it's overpriced. There's no need to pay, let's say, $10,000 in fluff cost for access to a platform. And that's on a subscription. That's not even just you have access to this. That's typically on a subscription. And with accessibility, you likely don't need a subscription unless you know that you want one. So if you know you want an audit at an interval basis, then that's fine. And that's a great service to have. And just to have this continual audit that comes in. But as I talked about earlier, you don't want to have too many audits too often because you just can't extract the value from the audit then. The only way would be if it's like like it's just on like a certain page or something like that. But we've covered the cost now. Now you have a really good idea of what to expect. I haven't gone over the accessible.org pricing because you can see that on accessible.org. If you go to accessible.org/pricing, and I will link to that in the description, then you will be able to see what you can expect to pay at accessible.org. Everything is transparent. I do this for multiple reasons. One of the reasons is I don't want to waste time. I don't want to try to catch someone in a demo so that I can try to hard sell them and push them to sign a deal. That's not the way I operate. I would rather let someone know this is what you can expect to pay. I'm not going to waste your time. Here's a really good estimate. Of course, prices are going to vary based on certain factors, but you're going to have an idea of those factors based on your individual circumstance. And then when you reach out, it's not like there's a big confusion, or if we've got to, hold our breath until the end of the sales call when I tell you the price. No, you're going to have a really good idea of what it's going to cost before you ever talk to me. And that's why when I talk to prospective clients, usually there's not a problem. Everything's straightforward. It's more just them understanding what they're getting in return. So it's actually works out very well in that way. We're not on 30-minute meetings where you already know that you're not going to purchase something, and I'm sitting there telling you about what the details of the service are. There's no need for that. There's no need to waste any time. And so that's one of the reasons I put this out there. But then another reason is accessible.org is truly a resource, and it gives you a baseline to work from so that when you're researching other providers, you understand, you have something to compare them against. And then you also understand the level of detail that's involved with accessible.org services. You can see that. I actually had another write-up over the weekend where I really broke down what goes into the accessibility audit. I will link to that in the description. But this gives you a better idea, like just by looking through accessible.org services, you have a much better idea of what you need and, to some degree, what you don't. So to finish this up, what you do not need is, you do not need solutions. You need services. Look for services. If you get services, you're in good shape. Don't look for technology, look for manual. And when there is a breakthrough in artificial intelligence, that's going to be known. Until that time comes, artificial intelligence can help in certain aspects of accessibility. I talked about alternative text descriptions. I talked about closed captions. It can also help with readability. There are other ways that artificial intelligence can help you, but it's not going to make your website ADA compliant. It's not going to give you a complete audit. So you still need services for those things, even if there are ways that we know that artificial intelligence can help. It can even help reduce the cost, but we just know that it's not there yet. You still need the actual services. And so that will end the stream. One note before I close is that I'm going to stop streaming for the time being. And if there's any reason to pick up streaming again, or I feel like it, I may. But previously I was streaming. I streamed for several Mondays in a row, but just the initial stream, we had a really good turnout, and there was dialogue, and then I was hoping that subsequent streams would build on top of that dialogue, but that hasn't been the case. So I'm going to stop streaming again. I might pick up again. It could happen, but for now, there's no reason for me to continue streaming, because we just didn't build upon that audience that we had in the first stream. So for now, just know that there are no scheduled streams upcoming. So thanks for watching, and I will include links to resources and many of the pages I discussed in this video in the description.